So, as it turns out, most students don't know when news is real or when news is fake. And this comes from a study out of Stanford University that is released today. And it's actually a study of 7,804 students from middle school to college. And it's the biggest so far on how teens evaluate the information that they read online. So this is actually a really important study. I'm surprised it's actually taken this long for us to see it, but especially with regards to all the fake news that we saw taking place and being shared to a viral extent during the election, I think it's really important that we talk about this. Just to put it bluntly, here's some statistics from that study for you. So, 82% of middle schoolers couldn't distinguish between an ad labeled sponsored content and a real news story on a website. Even further, there's some anecdotes and some examples within the study that I want to point out. One of them is more than 2 out of 3 middle schoolers couldn't see any valid reason to mistrust a post written by a bank executive arguing that young adults need more financial planning help. And nearly 4 in 10 high school students believed, based on the headline, that a photo of deformed daisies on a photo sharing site provided strong evidence of toxic conditions near the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear plant in Japan, even though no source or location was given for the photo. How is my pronunciation on that?
That was very good.
Thank you. Now, this calls into question the sort of critical thinking that is being taught in schools these days and the check and balance system that needs to be in place when kids have so much time on the internet. Something to note is that fewer schools have librarians, and that was who actually taught me critical thinking and research skills, and media literacy has slipped to the margins in many classrooms, and this took place in the United States, so we're talking about American students. A couple more statistics before we get into the discussion. By age 18, 88% of young adults regularly get news from Facebook and other social media. And according to a 2015 study of 1,045 adults age 18 to 34 by the Media Insight Project, that's what they found. What problems does this create? Now, this creates an echo chamber because social media tends to feed users news items similar to those they've read before. This comes from Walter C. Parker, who is a professor of education at the University of Washington, Seattle. What I like about this story specifically, and this is from the Wall Street Journal reporting on the research study from Stanford University, is that they give us some tools about what we can do to improve our sort of reading comprehension, again, critical thinking, and what they call lateral reading. What is lateral reading? That's basically as soon as you go to a website, leave that website, and then do independent...
And run. Just keep running.
Leave that website and then just move to a farm. No, leave the website and research the organization and the author and what their affiliations might be, who they are funded by.
That's so much work.
I know, but it's super important to make sure that you're getting your information from an unbiased source, or at least understanding that you might be getting your information from a biased source, which is okay. Opinion pieces are fine. I think they're important, but just understand that that is an opinion, that is not fact. Also, another thing they point out is to explain to teens that top ranking on Google doesn't mean an article is trustworthy. The rankings are based on several factors, including popularity and ads and whatnot. I think that is really crucial to point out, because a lot of times even when I go to a Google search, the first thing that comes up, you think inherently it's got to be more credible because it seems to have an endorsement from Google, which we view as sort of the end-all be-all of search engines. So it can't lead me astray if it's from Google. I think the bottom line of this study, and I know there was a lot of information to digest, so I would encourage you to check it out in your own time and read through the full findings, because if you're a millennial, this is really crucial. Just do your homework. And I am guilty of not wanting to do that myself. It's happened before on stories for this very show. I'm very sorry, Amir, but just take the time when you can, when it's important, when it matters, when it's a story or a subject that you care about, to make sure that you are getting your sources from an unbiased place, and that you're checking your work, because it's really hard these days to know who to trust.
Yeah, and like you learn all this, we learned it all in school. But like, so that's good and all, and to improve critical thinking for kids, I personally think that when you're in middle school, like, of course you're going to be impressionable by whatever's thrown at you.
Yeah, but this was even, high school students and college students
even in high
were
school,
prone to this.
Even in high school. I think there needs to be a conversation about holding the actual media accountable to be giving credible information and not just bullshit. So like that means putting Google and Facebook to task. Like, look,
Yeah.
maybe create like a filter, like a truth filter, that's like by default it's on search engines that the most verified, credible sources are going to appear first. And then if you turn that off, then you can see everything. You know what I'm saying? Like, we don't hold these people that are in charge of curating all this information accountable for anything.
Right.
They're just like, oh, no, this is the internet, free speech. You got to figure it out yourself. But why? Isn't truth the most important thing that we should be searching after?
Yeah, and I think a good exercise too is checking out your local news sources and your local newspapers and comparing how those articles are structured versus a lot of the articles that you see shared on Facebook or on Twitter or on social media, because there is a difference. A lot of the clickbaity articles that you see on Facebook will be maybe 100 words or less over a major story. I saw this all the time with
They're
regards
very easily
to
digestible, though.
Right, very easily digestible. And if you look at your local news sources, if there is, to a smaller extent, I mean, we're talking about someone reporting on the county fair or whatnot. I've been saying "or whatnot" a lot today.
You've been saying county fair a lot today, too.
I have, yeah, big fan of county fairs. So look at how descriptive they are about who, where, time, place, facts, verifiable facts. I think it's just a good reminder to read an actual newspaper. For me, I recently sort of got back into reading the Los Angeles Times, and it's really cool to read about actual events that are verifiable that happen, and then comparing that to a lot of the bullshit that you see shared on sort of echo chamber opinion sites that will take facts and numbers and very skewed poll results and very warped data to suit a narrative they've already decided they want to perpetuate. And I'm not saying that it's a hard issue. How am I going to make this point? Like my little beady fingers. It's really easy to do because we all have opinions. We are subjective beings. That's human nature. You feel a certain way about something. You want to find something that affirms that. So you gravitate towards news sources that suit your own narrative.
Yeah,
we do that a lot.
It's easier for your brain, and don't sell yourself short. Like, go out, do a little bit more work. You're better than that. You're smarter than that.
Yeah, and just when you're reading something,
challenge yourself.
When you're reading something through, just if something sounds too good to be true, a lot of times it is. And this is sometimes frustrating for me because as a member of the LGBTQ community, there are stories that come up that I want to be true. I want equality and acceptance and empowerment for my community, but I will go into stories about politicians with preconceived notions about who they are, and I will find sources that back up who I already think they are. And I do that sometimes without thinking, most of the time without thinking, because it's just sort of where I gravitate towards. It's where my compass leads me. And sometimes you gotta break the compass. And a good way of doing that is, I think, reading local news sources, seeing how those articles are structured, and then compare that to the sources that you find yourself gravitating towards. Because there are a lot of these sort of online think tanks that don't match the fact-based analysis that we should be expecting. And it gets really frustrating, and I feel like we're here talking or I'm talking, and we don't really have any solutions. And that's what makes me so frustrated, is because every single website I feel like I go to, I don't know if I even trust it. Yeah. And that sucks.
Don't even trust us. You need to look at a lot of different sources and make a final good analysis for yourself.
If you ever listen to something that I say and you're like, I agree with that, I want you to remember that I recently did an open mic in the attic of a Hooters. And so do you really want to just remember where your source is coming from. I love you guys, I really do, and I do my very best to get you all the information to the best of my ability that I can. But here's the thing, we operate on deadlines. We can't always fact check absolutely everything, but we do our very best every single time. But that's why we love our relationship with you, is because I always read the comments. You guys sometimes will provide awesome articles about different stories. Like remember with the Filipino diving team, there was a lot of convoluted sources going on about that. I loved reading all of that. I think if we work together, if we really work together as a community, then we can build each other up. And shut up, Amir. And we can build each other up, and we can get to the bottom of what the truth is, because we can do better. I think as a generation, I think we can absolutely do better, and we should expect better. And I didn't mean to get on my soapbox, but I did.
It was good.
Thank you. Do you want to say
Good.
something?
No,
I feel like I talked way too much.
No, you didn't. It was
Okay.
good. I believe in everything that you said. And
Yeah, more than ever, guys. We want to hear from you in the comments section below. How do we sort out fake news? What's the solution here? I know it's frustrating, but we really want to hear from you. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel, and we'll see you next time on Pop Trader.